Hello friends, welcome back to the second video now. As in the previous video, we talked about the multiple security fronts and we talked about the evolutionary perspective. In this video, we are going to discuss the first front, that is the Pakistan front. As I explained in the previous video to you, that Pakistan was placed by the strategic community of India into the unpredictable category. What was the rationale for that? What was the reason for that? The reason for putting Pakistan into the unpredictable category was because of the first point here. As I told you, that Pakistan initially was basically an idea. It was not a territory over which there was a fight going on. When there is a piece of territory over which a fight goes on, it becomes easier to define the identity of that territory. But what was the case of Pakistan? The case of Pakistan was that it was basically only an idea. An idea materialized with the efforts of the British into a piece of land. Now, when Pakistan became a territory, the leaders of Pakistan witnessed their first ever problem. And the problem that they witnessed was that how do they define the identity of the state? Whether Pakistan is going to become an Islamic republic or a secular republic was the main concern for the Pakistani leadership. And the reason why this concern was the concern for the leadership is for a simple reason there. And the reason was that when it came to the territory of Pakistan, we not only had the Muslims who were living there. When the partition happened, at that time, majority of the Hindus and the Sikhs who were living in Pakistan, they left the Pakistani territory, they came over to India. That is the reason why that when partition happened, Punjab witnessed the worst ever disturbances because of the inflow of the people coming from there. And also a lot of Indian Muslims leaving and going over to Pakistan. But the leadership of Pakistan were most concerned about the fact that how do we define the identity of the state? Was Pakistan a purely Sunni Muslim country? No. They had the Shias, they had Ahmadiyas, they had some Christians also. So the problem was, how do we define the identity of the state? Whether the identity of the state is going to be an Islamic republic or is it going to be a secular republic that is going to accept everybody. The problem further increased because Pakistan was not a homogeneous society. It had multiple heterogeneous groups. And because of this heterogeneity, the leadership failed to appreciate the concerns. You see, the case of India was very similar. We were not one united people. We had the Hindus who constituted the majority. But we had the Muslims along with us, we had the Sikhs, we also had the Christians, we had the Jainis and the Buddhists along. Our leadership right from the day one was very clear with the fact that India is not a homogeneous society. India can never be a homogeneous society. And that's the reason why the leadership of our country understood and accepted the fact that because we are heterogeneous, by default, heterogeneity means that we have to coexist together. And it was not something that came out of the blue altogether, friends. The idea of coexistence was also our past. It is that past that had a reflection on the present. And that's the reason why India adopted and chose to become a secular republic. But the fact of the matter is that when it came to Pakistan, Pakistanis lacked this clarity. They had a heterogeneous population and they had a political leadership which was adamant on homogeneity. Are you getting this idea? They had a heterogeneous population, but the leadership which viewed the heterogeneity in a limited, restricted mindset and hell-bent upon imposing homogeneity. That's the reason why in 1956 when Pakistan conceptualized and created their constitution, they went on to say that we are an Islamic republic, but that was a political move. And that political move never had the entire consent of the society. That is the reason why till today, Pakistan struggles with its nazariya, its identity. They do not know what their identity is. They have struggled to establish that identity till today. However, it is this lack of clarity on the identity is what gave the political and the military leadership in Pakistan an upper edge vis-a-vis the population. And that is why today we define Pakistan as an army controlled democracy. We don't say Pakistan is a democracy, but an army-controlled democracy. But keeping that debate aside, now let us come to the most important question and the most pertinent question. How did Pakistan become a front for India? That is where the core debate lies. Kashmir as an unfinished business is the defining feature of Pakistan. You see one important thing. When India became independent, the province of Kashmir, we all know, had a majority population of the Muslims, but was ruled by a Hindu minority leader who was basically Maharaja Hari Singh. Pakistan, on the other hand, was conceptualized as an idea on the principle of Islam and conceptualized on the fact that a majority of the Muslim population resides there. And when Pakistan was conceptualized, they started saying that unless or until we do not get the province of Kashmir, which comprises of the Muslim province, which also apart from just being a Muslim province is also geographically adjacent to our territory of Pakistan, we will perceive Kashmir as an unfinished business. Pakistan and its leadership started telling their awam or their population a narrative that Kashmir is an unfinished business. They started telling their population that because Kashmir is an unfinished business, we need to fight. And we need to fight for the purpose of getting this unfinished business back to us. Till today, Pakistan perceives Kashmir as an unfinished business of partition. And they assert that till the time we do not get back Kashmir from India, peacefully or violently, whatever, we will not stop. Now let's not forget one thing. Why is Pakistan so fixated over Kashmir? Is it that the Pakistanis genuinely care for Kashmir? Is it that Pakistanis genuinely care for the welfare of the Kashmiri Muslims? If Pakistan was so concerned about the welfare of the Muslim population, they would have probably focused more on their internal population, created a template there, and then told the world that, see, we mean business. It's not that Pakistanis have some motives which are positive for Kashmir. The sole motivation for Pakistan to have the access to Kashmir is not the welfare of the Kashmiri people, but it is the lack of crisis or the identity crisis that they face. Because till today, as Pakistan is not able to conceptualize their own identity, the army uses the story of Kashmir to convince the people that we need to fight. And if the people are constantly motivated to view Kashmir as a theater to fight, if the people of the country view Kashmir as a territory where the politics and the army has to devote all the resources to fight, they will not raise questions because they will continue to believe in the story that my state is not stable till the time we get access to the incomplete portion that is Kashmir. It is the identity crisis of Pakistan that is also not only responsible for diversion of resources to Kashmir, but it is also the identity crisis of Pakistan that the people of Pakistan today do not raise questions on their army when the army diverts all the resources to fight a futile war in Kashmir, which legally, historically never belonged to them. So keeping that basic idea in mind, it is in 1947-48, immediately after the independence, that Pakistan basically waged a war on Kashmir. The Pakistanis right from the day one were very clear with this idea that Kashmir is a territory where we have to fight a war. They were right from the day one very clear with the idea that Kashmir is a territory which is an incomplete business of the partition. We have to get that territory. But the problem was that after independence, Pakistan as a state at that time was a nascent state. When the Britishers left India and Pakistan, the British Indian army was divided between the two states. Even the stationery of the army was divided in two states. Obviously, they took a little bit more of stationery which is common to their identity. But the fact of the matter is that just like the Indian army which was nascent at that time, the Pakistani army was nascent at that time. But let us not take this nascent army lightly, because both these armies were earlier part of the British Indian Army. And the British Indian Army, just prior to the partition, had successfully fought the World War II. The armies of the two countries might be nascent, but they were well trained to fight wars because they had fought Not just a limited war, but a world war. So don't forget that. And it is in this backdrop that this nascent army of Pakistan at that time, this nascent army decided to wage a war on Kashmir with the larger objective of understanding that as India is busy in their own internal troubles of tackling the princely states, we might as well forcibly acquire Kashmir. It is in this backdrop that Pakistan attacked Kashmir, but they did not attack Kashmir only using their army. It is at this juncture when Pakistan played a very dirty game of using an element of jihadis. These jihadis were basically called irregulars. Why did Pakistan army use these irregulars? The Pakistan army used irregulars only for a very simple logic, because Pakistan army thought that these loosely knit people who could be inspired on religious grounds, if are put together into one particular mold and channelized towards the theater, then these religiously radicalized people will fight aggressively. And that's a cost effective option. Also because of the fact that these people who are the so-called people who are religiously radicalized or jihadis, if they fight on behalf of the state and tomorrow if they are captured by the other state, that is India, we can always claim innocence by saying they are not our people, number one. And number two, if you use these jihadis, you don't have to give them the training of that of the military. All you need to give them is a rudimentary training of how to use the weaponry, how to harm your adversary. So Pakistan found the use of jihadis as a very cost-effective option, and also an option by which they could claim deniability if their men and members were caught on the other side. That is the reason why Pakistan in the first war with India in 1947 mixed an element of jihadis with their regular army. This was the first time when we got to know that regulars and irregulars are mixed together. And this mixture of regulars and irregulars, when unleashed upon India, led to the first war between India and Pakistan in 1947. When this war happened, at that time, India gave a befitting response to the Pakistanis. Not only we repulsed these jihadis, but after repulsing these jihadis, we were also able to reoccupy the territory which these people had illegally been occupying. And had the United Nations not intervened at that time, probably our armed forces who were well trained would have occupied the entire Kashmir. Though we don't go into the UN intervention debate because that's a debate of the international relations as a subject. But the fact of the matter is that had the UN not intervened, the reality is that India would have got the entire Kashmir then and there in 47-48. But there was a huge British presence in ensuring that UN intervenes, and it was a part of the British conspiracy to ensure that India does not get the access to the entire territory of Kashmir. And it is because of that that a part of Kashmir still lays with them. But we will get it back one day. That's not a problem. They can continue to dream to hold that area, but they will not be able to hold it forever. We don't need to go into those options. But the question that now arises is that when the first war happened in 1947-48, when Pakistan used a mixture of jihadis, which were irregular forces, with their regular forces or their army, what was the implication of that on the strategic community of India? The strategic community of India always perceived Pakistan as an unpredictable state. They always knew that we do not know how the Pakistani state is going to behave. But this first war with Pakistan in 47-48 gave a huge amount of insights to our strategic community. Our strategic community at that time understood one thing, that Pakistan as a state may continue to display unpredictable behavior. But there are two key learnings from here. The first important learning was that if Pakistan as a state is going to display the unpredictable behavior, then this unpredictable behavior of resorting to violence is going to happen over a territory, and the territory in concern is the territory of Kashmir. Our strategic community understood one thing, that if Pakistan will ever do violence on India, they will do violence on Kashmir. And if they do violence on Kashmir, then not only we have to safeguard Kashmir, we have to safeguard our sovereignty and territorial integrity from coming under challenge by Pakistan. And if Pakistan repeatedly violates our sovereignty and territorial integrity on Kashmir, then we have to give a response to Pakistan in such a manner that they get a taste of their own medicine. We decidedly did that, decisively did that in 1971, when we gave a response to Pakistan in their own language by teaching them how it feels when somebody loses a territory. In 71, we told Pakistan, after they lost East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh, we asked them this question in 1972, that Pakistan, now tell us how it feels of losing a territory when you were always adamant on attacking us in Kashmir with the motive of detaching Kashmir from us. They got a lesson. The second learning for the strategic community at that time was very important and clear. The strategic community at that time was understanding the fact that as an unpredictable state, India has to be prepared to tackle Pakistan as a front which is going to affect our sovereignty through a mixture of irregulars and regulars. This mixture of irregulars and regulars is something that our strategic community began to digest, is what our strategic community began to understand, that as a state, Pakistan is not only going to trouble India with the use of their army, but they are always going to have an element of irregulars. So from an unpredictable state came a predictable stance that we were able to view. And the predictable stance that we were able to develop out of this unpredictable state was that Pakistan as a state is going to use their jihadi elements to target us. They did that in 1965. They tried doing that in 71. They tried doing that in 1999 in Kargil when the Northern Light Infantry was deployed on the Kargil peaks. And when Indian troops went over to those Kargil peaks, we found jihadi and army together. And they have been trying to do that till today by waging a war in Kashmir. So one thing is very clear, that this is an insight that our strategic community got right from the day one. This is an insight that our strategic community got in the first war of Pakistan, that Pakistan is a state which is never going to use army alone, and there is always going to be an associated jihadi element. And the last thing to understand is, why does Pakistan use this jihadi element? Don't forget the fact that Pakistan, as I told you, is a state which faces an identity crisis. The Nazariya-e-Pakistan is neither developed nor clear. So to ensure that the people of Pakistan do not start questioning the state, do not start questioning the institutions of the state like the army or the ISI, the idea was to use the people and channelize them in a war. If a part of the population is channelized in a war where the rest of the part of the population migrates abroad and a little bit population lives there, nobody threatens the hegemony maintained by the army and the politics of Pakistan today. That is why you see today that when we in India have protest over farms laws, in Pakistan there are no such protests. In Pakistan, if there are protests, then most of these protests are basically externally manufactured by some intelligence agencies of foreign countries, which could be adversaries of Pakistan. We don't need to go into all that. But the fact of the matter is, there is no questioning in Pakistan, because a part of the population was earlier used in the 1979 Soviet jihad, part of the population has been used for fighting in Kashmir, and a part of the population has migrated abroad, where they have created in London a mini Pakistan, or in UAE where they have created another mini Pakistan. And a little bit of population that resides in Pakistan today is residing only for the purpose of existence and does not have the capability to question, and is the reason why the armed forces in Pakistan, is the reason why the ISI of Pakistan, is the reason why the politics always maintain an upper edge. While we say, as I explained in the previous video, that Pakistan is an army-controlled democracy, do not forget one thing. That when we say that Pakistan is an army-controlled democracy, the army has its own sphere of functioning and the political leadership has their own sphere of functioning. They both maintain an equilibrium. They don't disturb the equilibrium. Obviously, whenever the political side disturbs the equilibrium, the army gains an upper edge and then suppresses it. That's what is happening today in the case of Pakistan as well. That while Imran Khan was a selected prime minister in Pakistan, selected, and despite being selected as a prime minister in Pakistan, today when it comes to the appointment of the ISI chief, it is the politics which is trying to gradually gain an upper edge over the Pakistani army. And if the issue is not resolved internally within Pakistan and if this balance of equilibrium is disturbed, there might be a high possibility that the army might suppress the politics. But that is a future speculative debate. So the fact of the matter is very clear. The strategic community of India got clear-cut insights, and the insight was very simple, that Pakistan as a state is going to target our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Number two, it is going to do the same with the use of regulars and irregulars. So I hope that the Pakistan as a front is very clear to you in this video. And in the next video, we will now try to look at the matter in a more detailed manner. Thank you.